Señoras y señores, welcome. It's Isusko, Film God family. What you saying? Another rep, another amazing chat with another amazing guest. You're going to have such a beautiful time. I wanted to try and start getting a few of the creatives in the advertising space to understand the process, because actually as film crew sometimes we go on set and we don't know how long this idea has taken to get to the point that we have it, that it is storyboards that we're shooting. And this episode gave me a really clear understanding of the blood, the sweat, the tears that go into a project before we even get a pencil. And it was just such a beautiful app, and you're going to have such an amazing time listening. As you know, I always like to have a little chat, a little kind of riff on these intros, just to give a little update of where we're at. I mean, industry had a bit of a tough little incident happen with Technicolor going down, and everyone at the mill and everyone at MPC kind of getting an email Sunday night telling them that they had no job on the Monday. I'm hoping, and I send out all my thoughts and prayers to all those people that very quickly got thrown out of a job. And if any of you are listening, it will all work out. It will all work out. Coming from a man whose entire career and life has been the unknown, some magic can really come from moments like this. And it boils back to the Marcus Aurelius phrase I said probably a few episodes ago now, where it's convince yourself that everything is a gift from the gods. And I know you're all going through something, and probably the worst moment of your professional careers, and it's probably having a massive impact at home, and it's probably having a massive impact on you and your mental health, which ties in nicely to a little chat I was having with Mr. Joey Ramsden, episode 97, who went through one of the hardest times of his life a few years back, and is coming out of it and is going to be running the 7 major marathons next year, starting in Tokyo around this time, kind of the beginning of March. He's going to need to get some funding, so if you're out there and you want to support a cause, I'll get you in touch with him. But it was a lovely little thing that he said, which I want to resonate and echo. That resonated with me, and I want to echo, is that in these times where times are tough, please remember that you are surrounded by other people in your department and in this industry that are going through the same thing as you. And what he said, which I really want to put out there, was maybe for every email and CV that you send out, phone someone as well. Phone a friend, check in with them, see how they're doing, so that we don't all feel like we're just out there just firing CVs out to, production companies and info@productioncompany.com, and looking at Instagram and seeing the people that are working. Give them a call, phone your friend, phone someone in the industry that you respect, and just be open and honest with them of how you're getting on. And I tell you what, the likely it is, they're probably going through the same thing. So we're not all lone wolves. Yes, we're freelancers. Yes, we're all trying to get the same job. But we're connected through our experiences as film crew in this country. And it probably resonates. Sorry, I've got a little bit of fluff floating around me there. This probably resonates with people in Hollywood that are listening, all my American brothers and sisters. And it may be happening to those out in, what have we got? We've got Saudi Arabia, we've got Denmark, we've got Nollywood, we've got people in India and Bollywood listening, we've got people in Australia, New Zealand. This has become a global podcast because we are a global film family. So thanks for listening to the little diatribe that I had there. Hopefully it hits the ear that it needs to hit at the right time. And I guess moving forward, you could be listening to this episode at any month in any year. And if anyone is listening in, December 2029, what are you saying? Hello there, future us. So before the app, again, shout out to our sponsors, Creative Caves, and another little shout out to Cine Certified for any of those people wanting to get into camera. Please go check them out. It's just film crew making things happen, an education system for film crew. Okay, so enough from me. Let's get to the app.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So, hello, Film God podcast listeners. We have got someone on today that is so experienced and so amazing and so lovely. I've probably been on quite a few of her shoots, but didn't even know who she was. And for her to turn around and say that she could carve out an hour of her time for me today to come and talk to me so that you can all hear what her job does and how it's done, because I think that the role that she does, it can sometimes feel a little bit mystical. And having kind of like the Michelangelo of the creative world come on the Film Gods, I feel so blessed. And we've just had a quick chat before I started recording, and I'm already giddy. It's like the giddy kipper that we're going to have such an amazing time. You're going to have such an amazing listen. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, what is your name and what is your role on the call sheet?
Well, hello.
Hello.
Hi. My name is Jane Briers. And I am, well, my official title on the call sheet would be Group Creative Director, which probably no one would know what the heck that even means. But if you were to look for me on set, I would unfortunately be under the Winnebago with all the magazines and the chocolate, looking like I've done not a single day's work in my life. So I'd be over there swanning around with the monitors and asking for coffee and things like that. So yeah, but officially Group Creative Director.
Amazing.
Or I used to be down as Art Director because that's my actual, that's my speciality.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for anyone that's listening that doesn't really understand the kind of agency creative side of it, just
Yeah.
talk us through the process of the journey of a client has something that they want to sell, an idea that they want to get out there. How does it come to you? And then what is it that you do to then form it into the script that we see and then the boards that the director then makes?
Yeah. So basically, the client will come to our strategy department. So every agency has a strat department, and they are the ones that take the client brief. So the client brief itself is normally an absolute behemoth. There'll be loads of charts, loads of documents, loads of information, just all about the product, who we're talking to, what their business problem is, how they want to change perception of the brand, what they want to sell, when they want to sell it, their targets, all of this stuff. So there's loads and loads and loads and loads of information in there. And then our strat department kind of distill that down into a deck, and they'll go in and they'll do a lot of research, a little bit more deep dive into the target market and the market in general and the competitors and previous ads that have been done for this sector before. Mm-hmm. They'll distill it all down, and we used to get a 2-page brief, 2 pages of A4, but we generally get this great big long PowerPoint presentation now, and they take us all through that.
Like 180 pages now, isn't it?
Basically, it's like click, 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 click. So we get all of this information. If it's good, if the brief is good, it'll be distilled down. Everything will be distilled down into something called the proposition. Okay. So that'll be the 1-line brief. That's kind of that's what we're all kind of bought into, and that we're all trying to answer. So the clients, they'll go back to the client will agree the agency brief, and then that'll be what we start to work on. And by we, generally creatives work in teams. So I've worked for the last 30 nearly 30 years with this guy called Dave. And strictly speaking, he is my copywriter and I am his art director. And we've always worked as a team. So once this brief has been formulated and once it's all distilled down to this 150-page PowerPoint, then Dave and I start trying to turn that into something consumer facing, by which we mean something with an idea in it, something that's going to capture people's imaginations, but something that's going to distill all of that into basically, if you're working on a TV ad, 30 seconds,
Yep.
or a radio ad, 30 seconds, not including the legals, or into a poster, 8 words at the most, even if you
Wow.
have words on there. So it's sort of, so that's when you get your lateral brain on, and that's when you try to think of a more creative way of putting all of this across. That yeah, so that's sort of yeah, and then so we used to back in the day when we started, you'd have like 2 weeks for a 25 by 4 little print ad, and
Mm.
that was glorious. And you spent most of your time in the pub, to be honest. But nowadays, it's a lot faster. It's like
Yeah.
so we generally have a couple of days. We have 2 days from
Wow.
brief. And in those 2 days, we're not just thinking of the TV ad and the print. We're generally thinking of the overarching idea, so
Hmm.
the campaign thought, and then we are looking into executions of that. So will also social, digital, everything, all of the different deliverables. But we also have to do that about 5 or 6 times. So we build our own deck.
Yep.
And within that, we generally try to come up with at least 6 ways in, and they will all be idea, concept, and then all fleshed out. And then you go into the internal review with this deck with six answers to the brief at least. And
So that they
then
can choose one, or is that, or
yeah,
is
well,
it
not
diff?
choose one, not choose one. So it goes internally first. So then you
Yep.
go back to the strats and the account handlers, and they kind of tell you, well, that's off brief or that's on brief, or we like that, but that won't work because of X. And so you have your internal committee first,
Okay.
who, which we work together to either hone the ideas and make them even tighter, or we maybe discard some because there's some stronger than others, and some are just more interesting or might have more stretch than others. And then we've spent a couple of days doing that, and then we'll take it to client for the first meeting.
Mm.
So that's when we go back to the big guys, and we go through the similar thing. We present all the work. We'll represent the so that they remember what the problem is we're trying to solve. And we kind of go back and forwards a little bit. We tend to have 2 to 3 reviews, and as we're doing this, we're either asking to come up with new ideas or refine the ideas that we've already had. Then, sorry, hope this is all making sense. But
Yeah, yeah,
then,
yeah.
then when we will generally whittle down to 2 or 3, and then those 2 or 3 will then go into research. So then
Wow.
we, so
How long?
then,
What process are we at here? How long has this time frame been?
so probably depending on client. So we've done a lot of work recently for the government. We've done
Yes.
a lot of for the Department of Health and Social Care.
Okay.
So they tend to be a bit faster turnaround. So we'll
Yep.
have we'll have approximately a week and a half, 2 weeks to do our bit. Then it disappears off into research for 2 weeks. And that's when they get the great unwashed and the British public to have a little, what do they feel?
Hmm.
Is it getting the right response? Will they act, in the way that we want them to as a response of what we're telling them? Is there anything that they find off-putting? Is there anything that they don't feel resonates with them? So
Hmm.
it's all these questions. And then after 2 weeks, I'll come back and we'll get a research debrief. And that'll be when we'll come, either one will be a clear winner and it'll be like happy days.
Yep.
We'll do that one.
Yep. Go
Or
ahead.
there might be, we'll like a bit of that and we'll like a bit of that. And or nothing completely wins. So we've kind of got to do a bit of tweaking. So
Hmm.
that takes another couple of weeks in terms of the government. Other brands take a lot longer than this. But generally the process is kind of the
Okay.
same. And at the end of all of that, we then have the route and we know what we're doing and we know
Yep.
what we're progressing with. So that's when we start talking to production companies and directors and photographers and the people who are then going to make our idea come to life.
Hmm.
So we'll have gone through all of that before we start engaging
Amazing.
anyone to start shooting or to start bringing it to life. So
And so you kind of, it feels like that creative process, there's a lot of logistics to it, and there's a
yeah,
lot of fact finding and sense checking from the initial kind of client. In my head, when you're talking about it, I kind of just see numbers and figures and pie charts and things. It doesn't feel like it's that creative. It's just information, it's data. And then the
yes,
agency are kind of turning that data into potential an overarching theme of what an advert could be. So,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be character led. Is it about just the product? Does it need to have a family in it? Does it, just the broader strokes? And then
Yeah.
once you've kind of gone back, figured it out, how much of because it feels like as the creative team, it's kind of like I'd say a baby feels like the wrong word, but it's like it feels like a little kind of baby that you've nurtured from, that you get that you're nurturing them and then it feels like do you hand that over to then a director, a production company and go, here's my baby. What, how much of their own idea can they bring to it if it's already gone through so many layers? Or what is it that your relationship with then a director would be in that time?
Well, ideally, what you want them so this for if we take a script,
Yep.
that's easy. That's what I kind of talk about. You take a script, it'll be there on paper and it'll be all written down. It'll have been thought through, and the wording will have been, minutiae.
Yep.
But there's still a way to tell that tale. There's a visual. There's either like a visual twist on it, or
Hmm.
there's additions to the story, or there's a way of framing the story. So basically, when we're looking for a director and when we're talking to them, it's when we find something. The thing that we go, oh, when we're in a first meeting with them, is if they bring something new that we maybe haven't thought about that elevates the idea and makes it either tighter or more exciting, or they'll just bring this extra edge to it, and it still has to stay true to sort of the core of what you're doing. But if they bring something that's a little bit more unusual, or the treatment, it's basically putting the sort of shinola and the spin on what you've got. Like for example, we worked on 118 back in the day.
Yes, I did a few 118s as a
Did
as a
you?
second. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we did one with Jim Hoskins, and it was the A team, and it's 118, 118, and they're just,
Nice.
so it's daft and fun. And Jim was amazing. Jim was absolutely incredible. He just had this such a lateral brain. So it's kind of in the way he cast. You could cast a certain. Obviously, we had the 118 guys; they were a
Yes.
given. But it was all the other people that you bring in. Now, a certain kind of director would just have the garage attendant be a normal garage attendant. But
Mm.
Jim being Jim, the garage attendant only had one arm, and he was a bit unusual looking. And then we had, as I said, we sang this song 118, 118, and it was written, the word was just on the page, choir. And I was like, it would be really good if, it's just this word choir, but it would be really good if we could actually like have a choir. And Jim was like, yes, brilliant. And
Nice.
so then we worked with him to take this little word that's just a throw. It could have just been a sound effect. But then we
Mm.
went, well, let's make it into an actual choir. So then it turned into 12 old 80-year-old gentlemen with the same haircut as 118 stood in the middle of a forest in South Africa
Love it.
wearing like singing 118. So it's things like that. It's just elevating it and taking it to the next
Mm.
level that and it's just making your vision even better, even
Mm.
more rich and yeah. So and that's one of the things I love the best. I like the creating and the writing, fine. And that's all great. Obviously I've done that and it's great. But my favorite bit is actually the next bit of the process when you're working with like the costume designers and the set designers, and you're working with all those people who are like bring your vision to life. And it's just like I can't
Mm.
do that. I can't do what they do, but I just love being on set and being like, so this is it. This is how our little script that we tippity tapped away. This is now, it's all coming to life, and it's all been coming to life in front of you. And I just absolutely love that part of it.
I can
So,
see that.
yeah.
Even your body language when you're talking about it, it's like the explosion of joy because I guess there's such a process. Like the
Yeah.
first bit feels like process, and actually there is elements of creativity to it. but
Yeah.
but there's like an explosion of other creatives that then come in from different areas of the visuals, as you said, the costume, the art direction, the lighting, the camera, the movement, turning that tippity tapped script
Yeah.
into a storyboard and a visual language that you can see and you can see clearly, that creativity, do you want them to be put like, is it do you, for me, I mean, we were speaking offline about how music and singing and that part of creativity is important to us both.
Yeah,
And I was in a band and when we were playing, you had to have this kind of freedom to make mistakes when you're
yeah,
freestyling and you're just riffing away and you might hit a bum note or you might miss a beat or you might do something. With the speed that we're going at the minute, are we able it like is that has that ability to drop a plate to make to miss a beat kind of gone a little bit, and how many times, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, when you are then in that room or in that process with other creatives, can people throw left field, or does everyone feel like they got to kind of be chugging the line, chugging the train, because actually they know that the client actually doesn't want anyone in pink, doesn't want anyone in red, doesn't want anyone blue. So don't like, are there that many? Is there levels of restrictions that you're kind of semi boxed into? So you got to be creative within that box.
yeah, very much so. So that's the thing. Our role is creative, and we are creative, and we do, all we have when we begin our process is a blank page and our brain. And that's that, there's nothing, yes, we've got the client, yes, we've got the brief, but ultimately we've got nothing else, so it is a creative process. But it's quite interesting. A number of years ago now, I was lucky enough. I mean, it's incredible. I was lucky enough to work with Bob Mortimer for a little while.
Love
We
that
were
man.
working on the Churchill campaign,
Nice.
and they had, it'd been going along. It was quite successful. It was fine,
Well,
but they
oh yes,
Oh
yes,
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 exactly.
yes.
So they wanted an injection of more humor and more comedy. So they didn't feel they could get it from the ad agency itself. So they thought, well, it was John Lloyd, who was the guy who came up with the idea for QI, and he also
Okay.
directed a lot. I think it's John Lloyd. Yeah, John Lloyd, and directed a lot of Blackadder and stuff. So this major director, this major comedy director,
Yeah,
and also Bob Mortimer, because at the time Bob Mortimer was the voice of Churchill, and also an incredibly, comic genius.
yeah.
So I had to go along,
I
Dave.
love just before you start. I love his one on. He's on the train. He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's get a cup of tutu.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. And you're just like these little 2 minute little
Oh,
random little clips. He's just
yeah,
so
he's
brilliant.
amazing. He's absolutely
Uh,
amazing. So Dave, my creative partner, I think he was off having a baby or something, but he wasn't in. So I had to get on this train to Isleworth, to this pub in the middle of nowhere. And I went to go and brainstorm with John Lloyd and bloody Bob Mortimer and little old me. And I'm like, hi, hello.
Hello.
God, like this. And it was just, I mean, it was incredible because it was just like working with some of your absolute heroes, like Bob in particular,
Yeah.
absolute heroes. But what was really weird was Bob, honestly, the ideas were never, they didn't stop. I mean, they were absolutely brilliant, but they were quite obtuse and they were quite odd. And I had to be like the sensible brain because I know that ultimately what we had to get across in this advert was something as dry as sticks, which
Mm.
was 50, get 50% off your car insurance. So, you know,
Your voice changed there. You suddenly became this lovely
I know it's
lady
so
from Surrey.
funny. Available for voiceovers. Yeah, not just but yeah, so it's just so there's our basically what I'm kind of coming around to is there is a
Mm.
creativity, but there are so many constraints. There's
Yes.
so many things you have to answer, and there's so many things you have to get across in the 30 seconds. That's why I know for a fact that we're like there's the eye rolling and the oh God, they ask for another take and oh God, they're wanting that to go again. All of that has come because there's been so much sweat and tears, and there's so
Yeah.
much on every single scene has been thought about. So we're not kind of doing it to just be awkward so and so's. We're doing it
Mm.
because it's been this many weeks and months of a process to get to the shoot. And it's nothing's by chance and nothing's just for the hell of it. It's all
Mm.
thought about. But ironically, Bob, so a little back to Bob, when I
Yeah.
was working with him, he said, when like you watch Shooting Stars
Yes.
and it looks like they're just chatting, it's all ad lib. every single word and every single look and everything they do has been scripted and they workshop it. So even that, whilst their initial thoughts are crazy, even that they've honed that to the nth
Yes,
degree as well, which I
yes,
thought was fascinating when I
phenomenal.
found out about him. So
That's because it's
yeah,
so well timed
yeah,
that it feels ad lib, but having that is a level of professionalism to the craft that is just brilliant. And you're right, it's in comedy that pause before that, that
yeah,
is it too long? Is it too short?
yeah.
Does it need to just have a little bit longer? Does the eye look, is it a double look? Is it all of those things? I honestly thought that was all ad lib, that they just put them in the
I
show,
did.
give them some questions, and then just riff. But yeah, you've got to have, 15 minutes. If it's a half-hour show, you've got a 13 minute because you've got a 2 minute advert break or a 4 minute advert break. And amazing. And so, and it's a really nice little I concept for me because I hadn't really segmented and chopped up the idea of comedy and creativity because a person like Bob Mortimer would just you could put him on a stage and for half hour he would entertain people with wonderful stories and loads of anecdotes and funny little quips, but actually when it boils down to, especially in advertising, that we are in essence selling people something that
Yeah,
they either don't need but want or didn't know that they need and actually go, oh, that not proposal, what was the word, the proposition,
yeah,
that feels like that's the kind of tagline of the film or the seed of the tree that is the advert.
yeah.
How many times have you had it that you kind of you spend all this time and actually the idea gets so far away from that initial proposition that actually you kind of just have to go, well, let's hold on, let's just take a moment, let's go back to the proposition. We've gone so far too far left because of the data that actually we just need to come a little bit more center.
Oh, you never move away from the proposition.
Okay.
You'd never do. That's the core thing that you're always
Yeah.
holding on. So the proposition generally isn't, it doesn't end up on the ad. You have to find a way, like a more colloquial and a more yeah, just a more inventive way of saying it. The
Hmm.
proposition tends to be like planner speak, strategy speak, and
Okay.
then we convert that into the end line or the tagline. But along the way, that's what everything is judged on. And so we never deviate. We never deviate from
Okay,
that.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I
It's
just had visions of, when everyone starts adding a little bit of layers to the cake, and actually we just wanted a strawberry cake, and everyone's gone, well, maybe a bit of mango, maybe a bit of thing, but you got to just strip it back again to start.
everything is added with a thought to the original thing we're trying to do.
Okay.
But when we're casting, like when we're casting or when we're finding locations or everything boils down to like I mean I'm talking again about the government stuff, but it's all about like is the target markets wouldn't live in a house like that. So, and
Yep.
they wouldn't
Okay.
wear those kind of clothes and they wouldn't
Yep.
do so everything is it true to the message that we are trying to communicate? It's
Mm,
all just comes down to is it true to the brand?
yes.
Like so yeah, that some brands are pink, so you put everyone in pink and
Yeah.
it's like hammer people over the head with the branding. So it
Yeah.
depends on what we're working on, but all
Mm,
it's either you're true to the brand or you're true to the target market or you're true to but it's all still very much answering the brief as
okay.
you yeah.
And so what are your, like you've had your all the stuff from the strat team. How do you start? What's your starting point to kind of just get those creative ideas flowing? And what's the little secret? I won't tell anyone. You just tell me.
There is no secret. We basically, we basically, so as I say, I've worked with Dave for a long time,
Yep.
and we basically tend to sit opposite each other, and we will both have our at the back in we used to have these big sheets of A3 or
Hmm.
like A4 pads, and you just write the name of the client in the top corner. So we like, Bueno or whatever it was, draw a box around it, and then just sort of have a little think, and then maybe write the proposition on the page, and then have a little think. And
A
you
cup of
basically
tea.
you go through creative departments, and you just see people opposite side of the desk with their feet up on the desk. So everyone would just think that not they were just slacking off and doing
Mm.
nothing. But that's when we're thinking, and then we'll have a bit of a chat. Oh, we could. How about we? So maybe you could do X. Yeah, and the kind of yeah, and that means
No.
no. And then you have a
We
little
all
bit.
know that, yes. We've all heard that, yes.
Yeah, or if it's really bad, they'll go, yeah, yeah, you can write that one up. So then you know that you've got an absolute disaster of an idea. So you kind of think and have a think and have a think, and then you'll write jot soon. Oh, that could be good. Oh, yeah, maybe there's something in that. And then you basically do that for an hour or so, and then you're like, shall we have a cup of coffee? Yeah, we'll have a cup of coffee. So you go off and you make a cup of coffee and you get away from your desk, and then you come back and you just basically do that. And sometimes when you're in the brief, you'll get the answer and you'll go, I know what I'm writing. I know what I'm
Mm.
doing. I know it already. So sometimes you come out and go, right, well, I thought, and then I go, oh, that's brilliant. And then you could do, and then you start fleshing out the idea.
Mm.
So it's sometimes as instantaneous as that, but sometimes it's, and you kind of got to get, you kind of got to get through all the expected stuff and get all the expected things out of your brain. And
Yep.
you talk about that, get that down on the pad. But you've kind of got to get through that process. And then after a little while, you start getting into the more interesting stuff, the more lateral stuff, and the thing that hasn't been done before, or the thing's a bit more interesting. So there
Mm.
isn't really a science, or there isn't really, as I say, it's just we've got to just think and talk, and that's it, and hope something comes. But that's the good
Mm.
thing about being in a team, because
Yes.
if you're on your own, but if you something, Dave can say something and that'll spark, or I'll say something, oh, there's something in that. So it's a lot about the conversation, and the back and forwards is really, really useful because you can, it might not be the initial thing you say that it ends up being the idea, but it can be
Mm.
something that you say that then goes, oh, well, hang on, if we take it over here and think about it in this way, that could be fruitful. So that's kind of it. There's
Oh, I
no,
like it. And then
yeah.
are you, I guess, what you're ingesting is the wrong word, but what you're taking in, the books that you read, the music that you listen to, the films that you're watching, there's there feels like there's elements of ideas in there. And when you found, like, say, when you found Dave, is it that you were two ends of a spectrum where you're like, well, I like this, oh, well, I like that, and then you actually like your yin and yang, or is there similarity? How does it work when you're bouncing off each other? Are you similar to certain points, but actually at other ends of other spectrums, and does that help the creative
Yeah,
process?
so, so it might help if I tell you how Dave and I actually got together, how
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
so we both basically both, um, so back in the day, the best course in the whole of the country was in what was Watford, the Watford course, run
Really?
by this
That seems a
fantastic.
bit random.
I know it's really random, but it
Huh.
was run by this wonderful man called Tony Cunningham, who
Yep.
unfortunately passed away a year or so ago, I think.
Okay.
But basically, when I was in university, I looked into how to get into advertising because just quickly going back a step, when I was 15, I went on work experience in an ad agency in Newcastle. I actually spent the whole week drawing pictures and I thought, oh,
Wow.
this is a good job. Nothing to do with what I do now at all. But I was like, yeah. And it
Yeah,
also
yeah,
sounds quite sexy. I'm going to work in advertising, So
yeah.
you're like, yeah. So at the end of my degree, I thought, well, let's look into doing this advertising log. So I
Hmm.
found this course in Watford and it had, and it's an intensive work year course. So I enrolled to do that and I thought, and my dad was going, you should be a teacher. You should work in a bank. You shouldn't be doing this
Yeah,
stupid
yeah.
flash in a pan thing. So I said, well, I'll give it a go. And if I don't get onto the best course in the whole country, well, then I'll go and be a teacher or I'll do something else.
Yeah.
So I applied and we had to do this copy test, which was loads of questions and loads of lateral thinking problems. Then we had to go for the day's interview. And that was also very sort of mind-bending and odd
Mm.
things. You had to write an ad in an hour and it was all like, ah. Anyway, at the end of all that, I got in. And on the first open day before we actually began, I met Dave along with loads of other people.
Yeah.
We decided we'd share a house together because everyone had to look for flat shares. So we
Hmm.
decided we'd share a house together. So then we were on the course and we were doing the first term. And in the first term, basically, you got set a brief at 9 o'clock in the morning. At 9 o'clock, you'll have come in overnight and you'll have presented the work you'd done overnight.
Yeah.
We were all different, we were all split up, and we were art directors and copywriters. So I wasn't really working with Dave because I was working with all the other copywriters, and he was down as an art director at the time. So we were split up working on it with everyone else on the course. So you'd work on something overnight, and then you'd be 9 o'clock, you'd present it, and then at most of the things, it's rubbish, that's shit, that's shit, that's shit. Everything would come off the wall. Start again, new brief, present at 12, present again. Everything was decimated. And then
Wow.
new brief, present at 3, duh, decimated. New brief, present at 3 o'clock, present at 5. The same sort of thing, new brief at 5, then you had to work overnight to present at 9 o'clock the next morning.
Wow.
So it was pretty intense, but very, very good training. Because when
Yeah.
we have 2 days to come up with something, it's like, whatever, so it's fine. So
Can
it's
do it
very,
in 2 hours.
yeah, whatever. So whilst Dave and I were doing this process, the
Mm.
stuff that we were generally coming up with at the end of the day, we were then sat around our kitchen table,
Yeah.
both drawing up what we'd come up with other people. And then we would chat about the idea in the brief and generally would come up with stuff that was better than the stuff we were drawing up. So we got on really well. He's a bit of a miserable so-and-so, like a bit.
So you are
And
chalk and cheese then.
none of this hand movement stuff. Yeah. So but we just got on, and we always took the ideas to a better place. So already we were
Yes.
getting on as people, and we were getting on, and ideas were progressing. Then at
Nice.
the end of the first term, you had to put a portfolio together, and you had to present all your work that you'd done with other people. And then we had a crit, so the year was ranked. So Dave was first, and I was second,
Come
and then
on.
below that, and he always holds that over me. He's like, "Yeah, well, I was second, I was sure." So at the end, that we kind of were already thinking we would work together,
Yep.
but then he might have worked with a guy called Al, but then he thought they're too similar, so he just wanted to work with a girl, and we were sort of different enough
Mm.
from each other to keep it interesting, but we also got on, and we just were able to talk, and the stuff we came up with were really fruitful. But also, we both were really hard workers as well.
Yes.
We really put the hours in. So it's all those things combined. I don't even know whether this answers your
It
original
does. Yeah,
question,
yeah, it does.
but all those
Brilliant.
things combined were the things that made us become a team. But
Hmm.
we were literally teamed up at the end of the first term. We're the first team to get a placement. We left, we went on this placement, which means we went into an ad agency and started just working as a cheap labor
Wow.
in this ad agency.
Yeah.
And we didn't actually go back. We were carried on and went to another placement and another placement. So we didn't actually finish
Wow.
the course. We just started. And once you start, if you can, you just start and you carry on, and that's it. We were just doing it
You're in
then.
it. Yeah, you're in it. Then you're in that wheel. And that, I guess that shows and it's always everyone's story that am I ready? Am I not? Can I do it? Can I not? And they throw themselves into what is the unknown. You've
Yeah.
traveled, you moved down, you've moved to a new city, you get thrown into the best course in the country that sounds like an absolute beasting
Yeah,
of
it
just
was.
like, and even if it could have been the greatest idea in the world, it would have come off the board and thrown on the floor. It wouldn't have mattered because it seems like the process wasn't about going, oh, that's quite a good idea. It was just
Yeah.
about getting you to I guess the triggers for creatives kind of having spent all this time and someone going, I don't like it, learning to lose that kind of, well, what do you mean you don't like it? It's like, well, no, just off, do it again, off, do it
Yeah.
again. It's like, just let it go, just let it go, let it go, let it go.
Yeah.
having kind of booked on to do a year, having done one semester and then going, ta-da, I'm off, I got a full-time job. Thank you, bye.
Oh no, we didn't get a full-time job. Placement is not a
Oh,
full-time
okay,
job.
fine.
Placement is working for 50 quid a week. So
Oh,
placement is yeah, you're in before everyone else. You leave after everybody
okay.
else.
It's like the runner on set.
Paid nothing. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
But that, I guess that the going to a place that is the top of the top,
yeah.
I'm sure every ad agency is kind of going, right, who is the top five at, Callingham
Well,
working?
it definitely, yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely being going to Watford and getting a place was
yeah,
amazing. They had
yeah.
so many connections in all of the agencies. We used to go in on every Wednesday evening, travel in from Watford, and then we'd go to book crits. The agencies would set us briefs, and you'd have to go in and present to the creatives in the agencies. So it had this really good connection. So then when we were when we were out, we got placements, but then you had to tout your wares. You had to go around
Mm.
with your massive A3 portfolio with everything that you'd
Here's a
drawn.
job. Here's a
Yeah, it
job.
was. It was literally like, "Ah," and then can we have a placement? And you'd come in and you'd go and meet all these different creatives. But because you already had through Tony and through his hard work, we
Mm.
had a connection and we had a way
Nice.
in, we had a way to meet people.
Yes.
And then also then after that, it was a case of ringing and keeping on the phone, which was where being a girl was invaluable because there weren't any female creatives. So as soon as you
Really?
ran up, you were like, "Hiya, it's me." So as a girl and a Geordie, oh yes. So
Brilliant.
you're stuck in the
They know
mind.
who you are. Yeah.
People remembered you. So that was really important because there's loads of us out there with massive portfolios. But if you've got a point of difference and you're a bit, that
Mm.
was good as well. But yeah,
Has
so
that changed now? Is there more, has the
yeah,
creative side, from being very male dominated, has that had a big change recently or over
it's
the
a
last how many years?
fairly, it's moved a little bit. Yeah. So when I joined, I think, or well, not when I joined, but early on, I think there was a stat that was like only 3%. For a while, when I became creative director at
Mm.
W. There was only 3% of creative directors were female. So it was a very,
Wow.
very tiny number. And I think it's only something like 7% now. I might not
Oh,
be
wow.
so it's still quite small. It's
What is
but
that? Is that
oh,
just like a generational thing where they think that men, or is it just,
I don't know
uh,
really. I don't know whether I think it's a quite hard job to get into
yep.
because of the placement system and because you're
Hmm.
basically well, especially, I mean, obviously I'm talking 30, look, 20 odd years ago. So,
Yeah.
but it's still kind of the same. You've still got to go on placement. You've got to be junior. You've got to sort of put up with not really making a load of money and you're just
Yes.
it's a bit scrappy. And I don't know whether you have to be a certain kind of person. I'm not sure that, I don't know, this is maybe sweeping generalization. It's more of a man thing, maybe, to put up with that than maybe a woman thing. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know. But having said that, our department at the moment at Mullen is, and the agency as a whole, is so much more diverse. I mean, it wasn't
Amazing.
just there was no women, there was no gay men, there was no lesbians, there's no black people. It was very much white male
Mm.
environment. And so overall, I think it's really vastly it's changed for the better from that point of view. It's much more
Mm.
inclusive as a general
Yeah. And also from that point of view, you kind of look at food and culture and music. It's kind of, with with those different voices, with those different cultures, with those, ideas can come and different ideas and colors and patterns and sounds. And
yeah,
that can only help in a
yeah,
creative environment, having being surrounded by a much wider palette of creative cultures.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Amazing. Um, so we it's kind of getting close to that kind of 45-minute mark, and I feel
Oh,
like we've only I know it feels like we've only just kind
yeah.
of scratched the surface. So, uh, you know, uh, is there anything, is there any topics, is there anything that I haven't asked, we haven't touched base on that you want to go down? I mean, looking at where the industry is at the minute, one question that I'd say is what changes have you seen recently? And then, projecting forward to 5 years, what do you anticipate? Do you anticipate any changes? Is there going to be anything? Has advertising changed drastically over the last 10, 20 years to a point that you can predict the future?
Not sure I can predict, I don't know, but it
Mystic Meg
definitely
moment.
has. Definitely, yeah, crystal ball. It definitely has. I mean, change in terms of social media has made a huge difference already in
Yep.
terms of because now clients think that there's all these creators out there, so they do it for 5 pence or they do it for nothing. So budgets have come down and timelines have come down
Mm,
and there's less of a belief in craft and from a finished product point of
yep.
view. I mean,
Yep.
we used to go on countless numbers of print shoots every year because print, magazines and newspapers, you had to have a presence in there, where that not so much anymore. It's much
Mm,
more that you're making little short social films or you're making TikTok ads or so it's the medium that we put the ideas out in is very, very different, much shorter and not as much not all the time, but quite a bit of not as much care into the
yes.
product because
Yeah,
it's just a
agreed.
little bit more throwaway because of the nature of social.
Yes.
Got to be a little bit more, what's your hook? And but oh no, don't write it too much like a headline because people don't respond to headlines. And so it's sort of that has hugely changed the way we write. At the core, you still have to think of the big idea. You still have to think
Yes.
of the brand idea, and then it's a way of executing rather than changing the process. But
Mm,
also we kind of ignore the AI.
mm,
That's going to have a huge knock-on effect to everything. It already has in terms of concepting. We use things with the. It was already when we started a line drawing was enough to sell an idea.
yes.
As we progress through our career, I mean, this is how old it makes me sound like ancient, but computers came in and then Photoshop arrived. So already there was a level, we were taught when we were at college, it doesn't matter how finished it is, as long as the
Yes.
idea is tight and the line
Yes.
is tight. Now it's not just about that. You've got to be able to put your idea across. Everything's got to be beautiful. And everything, AI is helping with that and AI
Mm,
is taking us forward with that. But I also think it's not going to be long until AI are you going to put, I want an idea for this.
yes.
So AI are actually going to be coming up with the ideas, which is
Mm,
scary. So what I worry about is maybe it might start changing the landscape. You'll always need a creative director, someone who can judge those ideas and kind of cherry pick the best ones that AI have come up with and then build on that. But it might mean it's slightly different for the more junior people because junior people, you come in, you cut your teeth on trying out and all the
yes.
small briefs. So that might be a slight change. I think there'll still be a need for like I say, the people who collate and
Hmm.
find the nuggets within what they're being given, but that might be a bit different, I think.
Yes. I guess it's
Um,
that kind of input, good input in, good input out.
yeah,
And the I really like what you just said there about when you were starting off, it wasn't about how good the finished idea, how good the finished product was when you, it was about how good the idea is.
yeah,
And and that just made me kind of think, well, oh, is there an ability now to kind of hide a not so good idea with a lot of fluff and a lot of better presentation
yeah,
when actually the idea isn't that strong? It's like a good idea you could write down on a bit of paper and everyone understands it.
yeah,
Everyone absolutely gets it to its core. But if you need
yeah.
to start throwing in big visuals and things and AI generated this, that, and the other, how good is your idea?
It's such a shame because as I say, when Dave and I were going around with our massive A3 portfolio,
Uh,
it was massive, but the way that we put the ideas in there were very, very simple. So a TV ad would be 4 frames, so just literally 4 frames and an end line, all
wow.
handwritten, but you could get the idea from that.
Yes. Yeah,
And
yeah.
a poster would be literally just a poster with a line and an end line. So whereas now when you see students, they've all got like, so the client asked us to do this, and they've got this really sexy case study, and then it's all woo, and it looks shy, woo. But you're
Yeah.
like, but get to the point. Have you written an
Yeah.
end line? No, you haven't. Have you, it's sort of, it's all about this big picture now rather than sort of the core. And also the other thing that's a shame was when we began, there was so much more that could be brought to the process because it was just a scamp. So
Mm.
when you were working, for
Sorry, what's a
example,
scamp?
a scamp is a hand drawn, it's a roughly drawn
Okay.
visual of an
Yep.
idea.
Cool.
So when it was just scamped up or roughly drawn, then for example, if you were working with a photographer, well, you haven't already put a woman in a blue dress with a sunrise with a building that looks like this. It's much looser than that. So there was so much more room for creativity from that point to
Yes.
then discover where it would go. Whereas now
Yep.
everything's so macked up or AI'd up to an nth degree. Well, they just want exactly what you've shown them. So when you
Mm.
come to the next part of the process, in terms of working with a photographer or a director, they're kind of going, well, we just want that building. Well, that building was made in AI. That building might not exist, but we want that
Yes.
building. And we
Yeah.
want that one to be looking in that direction. So you're just like, well, where's the play and where's the kind of
Mm.
working things out and finding something better than on the first on the table. So that's
Yes.
kind of changed quite a lot because of how polished everything is before we go into first reviews.
That's a
Um,
shame because that when we were talking earlier in the episode, that was the point that you were like, and it was like there was a big wave of other creatives that can come in. But you're right. There's so many times that I get on set and we're doing a motion, a stills, a social, and it is just it's copy that. That's that board that they've got. That is exactly what they want. There's no kind of freedom to go. The only freedom that directors and DPs, from my perspective, music videos.
yeah,
That's kind of like the last bastion of being able to just go, what are we going to shoot? Well, we've got the band here and we're in this swimming pool and blah, blah, blah. And I did a shoot for this young band just before Christmas. And the DP that just kind of didn't want to shoot straight on. So he just tilted the camera just while he was talking. And the reflection off the pool to see the band doing, you're like, and this beautiful scene. You're like, there's no way AI would have thought of it. There's no
yeah,
way we would have thought of it. We went on the recce, we didn't see it. But the
yeah,
mistake, quote unquote, mistake that happened on set turned out to be one of the most beautiful shots that I think that we got in that whole music video. And it was a lucky mistake that happened because we were free to be able to just find stuff. And I think
yeah.
that kind of the box that we have to kind of put ourselves into commercials, it has to be done because, as you said, there's a whole data set that we're doing it, but there needs to have a little bit of freedom to find that gold, to find
Yeah.
that gold dust, which actually leads me on to a question that I had whilst you were talking. And you were so enthusiastic about ideas. Is there a spot that that you've looked at over your career and gone, yeah, that is absolutely spot on. Like something that you're like, oh, I just that it's a beautiful, because everything you do obviously is amazing. But there's going to be other people that do stuff that you're like, yep, top not top chops. That was a bit of a that was a great idea, and I love what they did, and just seeing something from somewhere from another angle.
So there were, well, God, that's so many.
That's
Uh,
okay. Sorry.
the
Okay, top 10.
no, no,
Let's
no,
go for
that,
another
no, no, I
hour.
think no, no, no. I think there is one. I think there's one. So the ad that I always remember and I think was absolutely brilliant was there was a one for Honda Diesel and it was hate something, change something, make something better. And it
Nice.
was just it
Brilliant.
was so like lateral way of doing it, like making an enemy of something, but then putting it in this beautiful, lively world. And the animation style and the way it was done, but the underlying thought of it was just brilliant and lateral and yeah, and catchy and great. And yeah,
Mm.
that was probably one of my
Beautiful.
favorite.
And that kind of thing is it's so personal. And I think great ads and great adverts. Speaking with the shoot from last week, we had the director and it was like, "Oh, I had to go and meet this family and they're up in Accrington Stanley." Now, for
Ah,
me, I
yeah,
was born
yeah.
I was born in 1984. So anytime anyone says Accrington Stanley, I go,
Yeah,
"Who are they exactly?" And it was milk, and that was it. And that is where I have so much hope and yeah, hope that and trust that wherever we go with technology, wherever it goes and however it helps us, it's not going to be able to do what the best ads can do, which is
yeah,
take something that's timeless. I'm a 40-year-old man and I still giggle when he said Accrington Stanley and I said, "Who are they?" And he just straight back went, "Exactly." And that is just what adverts are. It
yeah.
could have been selling anything. It could have been selling anything. But that is where I think that humans and the soul of idea and the creativity and it's a cultural thing. It was the accents, everything was just perfectly honed, and I just have so much hope and belief that we, as the generation that are now pushing it forward and trying to figure out how it all moves and what technology is, I know that we have got such an experience of how it was done and why it was done the way it was done, that the trust is just there, that I know that we will be able to do it. And now I know we're nearly close to an hour. So I get close to this, and I firstly just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on, because how you explain it and the passion and enthusiasm that you have for your job is so easy to hear, and for me so easy to watch. It's just absolutely beautiful. And in my kind of research before the app, just to get a little understanding, there I don't feel like there would have been another job, another career that you could have done. And I know, it's like parents, even with me, my mum, and it will always hit. She was like, "Yeah, but when are you going to get a proper job?" I was like, "No, but I love," and she said it not harmless. There was no malicious intent there. It was just they were just used to kind of be a teacher, be a something, job security, all the rest of it. And I think what I've learned from this, and then what I learned from your website, when you're like, you had the freedom as a child to just stand in the garden for 20 minutes, throwing a bucket in the air, and the last little line on your website is like, there's nothing else that I could have been other than a creative. And that
Yeah.
20 minutes of you standing in the garden throwing a bucket is the 20 minutes of you sitting opposite Dave, looking up at the ceiling fan, trying to think of an idea. That kind of your and I'm talking out of turn, but it seems like your family around you allowed you the space to be creative, allowed you the space to not have to go to cello practice, to thingy this and exams and da 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 da. It was like, actually, there's so much that can be learned and taught from just daydreaming, and it's such an important skill, that honestly, it's just so beautiful to hear your story. And so the last two questions, that we'll go to, the last one will be your acceptance speech for, I'm sure, the countless awards that you've won. And who I want to say thank you to. But the second to last question, which I always like to kind of finish on, because this is really the end of the app, is your advice to your younger self. And it's normally just a broad, open kind of, who would you speak to? But actually, I'd love to, I'd love to know what you would say to that younger you that had, call it pressure, call it whatever you want, but advice from family to try and find a secure job, and you just going, I'm getting on a train. I'm going down to Watford because I've got onto the best course in the country for something that I really think I'm going to be good at and I love. And you've just started, and you're sitting there opposite Dave, and you're in that process, and your work's been chopped to bits, and you're working 20 hours, 24 hours a day. Just if you were now sitting opposite that Janie instead of Dave, what would you say to her?
Oh God. Um, it'll all be worth it. All the hours and all the slog, it's going to be worth it. You're not going to, there's no other job that's going to get you to work on a day to day with such interesting people. You're not going to get to, it's never going to be a job that's going to allow you to travel as much and explore as much. And what other job are you going to get to sit and basically just think? Your
Mm.
main job is thinking, and it's just yeah, very, very lucky, really. So yeah, you might be working till 2 o'clock in the morning drawing up scamps, but it'll all come right because one of these days that scamp will take you to South Africa and you'll be staying in the Lord Nelson. It'll all be very swanky. So but more it's about, I don't know, just it'll be worth it for the people you'll meet and the things and just the wonder of what you'll make and do. It'll be so stick with it. It'll be all fine. Is that
Oh,
right? Is
amazing.
that
That's
us?
beautiful. It's beautiful because it is, you're right. There's, for us that have chosen the non-linear path of a job, we put ourselves into this weird little bubble of, I don't know when I'm going to next have a job. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay the mortgage. I don't know if I don't know. And all my, friends and family that are working in very secure 9 to 5, which actually secure means nothing because all these companies are going up and all the rest of it. So no one's job is secure. But I would never trade what I do to for the security of a 9 to 5, working Monday to Friday in an office, just beating up and replying to emails. I couldn't do it, and I don't think you could. And I think you are, and you have found the exact role, the exact company, the exact position and industry that you could have done. There's not you could have being as intelligent and creative and hardworking and smart as you are, you could have done anything, absolutely anything. And I'm so pleased that you've come into this world, um, and that you are pushing and reminding people of the importance of what we do and why we do it. So thank you. Right. Last question. It's not even a question. It's now your acceptance speech. You're up getting your Golden Globe, your Oscar, your Golden Arrow. Anyone that you would like to say thank you to, give a shout out to, or any projects or anything that you want to tell the listeners about?
Well, there's only one person, isn't there? I mean, it's my long-suffering creative partner, Mr. Dave Cornell.
Shout out, Dave.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately there's a great big aeroplane coming across
Oh,
now.
don't hear it. It's fine.
All right, good. So yeah, my long-suffering partner, Dave Cornell, we met at Watford College. We graduated in what was apparently one of the best years that he's ever seen in 1996.
Of course
We've
it was.
been pretty much, apart from the odd holiday, we've sat across the desk from each other and thought of ideas, and we've been on such a, it's been amazing. And having him and as well as each other's wing person, and either not and with each other, and when we were made redundant a few years ago, but we got through that, and yeah, but also for being so funny and always making me think and laugh, and pushing what we're doing, and being a miserable old so-and-so. Yeah, it has to be the one and only Mr. Dave Cornell.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you were going to have a great time. I knew you'll all end up as giddy kippers at the end of this episode. So thank you so much. Like, subscribe and share. And until we meet again, ladies and gents, that is a wrap. So that was a chat with the king or queen in the game. I'll give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast.